Have you ever considered if significant events from the past have been omitted, buried, or even purposefully deleted from the Bible as it exists now? Since the early days of Christianity, and still baffling scholars, historians, and Christians today, the topic of what constitutes the original Bible has been an intriguing puzzle. Now here comes billionaire, inventor, and always eager to learn man, Elon Musk. Instead of merely studying and understanding the Bible, Musk is delving into ancient documents that have lain forgotten for millennia. Musk is investigating everything from the Dead Sea Scrolls to rejected manuscripts like the Book of Enoch and the Gospel of Thomas, questioning accepted wisdom like, is what we know about Christianity the full story? Could he have hidden or passed over something important? This is not only a narrative about one man's search for knowledge. Musk's path transports us to important historical events, including the early church councils, the Protestant Reformation, and the recent rediscovery of medieval. It motivates us to examine the battles fought over the veneration and denial of various books, often at enormous cost to their followers, were denied. Prepare yourself to go across time and uncover secret facts about the Bible and its possible contents. You will learn fascinating tales of faith, strength, and power, controversially contributed to molding the Holy Scriptures we know today. Are you ready to challenge all you thought to be accurate regarding religion, history, and the definition of truth? Elon Musk finds thousands of year-old records buried within the Christian church. Far-off monasteries and lost archives hold these treasures. These remarkable books offer distinct points of view on early Christian ideas and practices that deviate significantly from the accepted wisdom supported by official church theology. This realization changes our knowledge of early Christian history greatly. By meticulously reading these ancient texts, Musk finds amazing details about the early Christian communities and the biblical stories. Not present in the canonical sources, the works provide thorough narratives of spiritual experiences, philosophical dialogues, and theological disagreements. These documents offer a glimpse of the several ideas and customs early Christians carried before the church developed a shared theology. As Musk keeps reading these old texts, he finds solid proof that early Christian ideas covered a greater range of spiritual and philosophical ideas than was formerly believed. The works challenge conventional religious knowledge by including descriptions of magical acts, different readings of Jesus' teachings, and arguments of cosmic relevance. These writings contain profound theological concepts that mainstream Christianity has overlooked over centuries of development in doctrine. These uncovered writings offer crucial details on the varied nature of early Christian thought and the convoluted process via which the canonical biblical canon was assembled. Translation and analysis teach Musk that numerous early Christian civilizations had diverse ideas on spirituality, divine essence, and human potential. According to the books, one can have a more complex and sophisticated picture of spiritual reality that fits several points of view and interpretations. The secret books also reveal fascinating connections between early Christian doctrine and other ancient wisdom systems. They include references to universal truths, spiritual practices, and common philosophical ideas transcending religious lines. Early Christians, according to this study, had a more inclusive and integrated perspective than what academics and religious leaders had earlier believed. It demonstrates how similar spiritual legacy societies are. Musk's research exposes, throughout millennia, the slow elimination of some ideas and points of view from mainstream Christian belief. The books offer several points of view on awareness, human potential, and the interaction of people with the divine. General practice judged these points of view excessively extreme or challenging. These lost lessons offer a more complex picture of human spirituality and help us to understand how Christian philosophy and practice. These old books have significantly shaped Musk's views on spirituality and human potential. They say that early Christianity had both practical and spiritual knowledge. This is important for today's problems and studies of how people become aware of and develop their abilities. And development. The book's eye. The books incorporate sophisticated philosophical concepts that link past and present knowledge. Therefore, they offer insight pertinent to human development. As he travels this path of study, he begins to appreciate the depth and complexity of early Christian thinking. The writings expose a spiritual legacy in depth and complexity that is beyond the official church doctrines. This knowledge has shaped his views on religion, awareness, and human potential in ways that mirror his vision for the future growth of mankind. The discovered writings also help us to grasp early Christian perspectives on human progress, invention, and technology. These points of view are particularly crucial for Musk's initiatives to employ technology to raise human ability levels. Unbelievably, the ancient knowledge shares many similarities with contemporary debates on enhancing humanity and raising awareness of its consciousness. This indicates that there are universal guidelines on human evolution applicable to all times. Musk persistently investigates these hidden texts, cognizant of their potential significance for individuals, intrigued by the historical foundations of Christian philosophy, and those in search of contemporary spiritual guidance. According to the texts, early Christianity was more varied and intellectually advanced than is commonly known. They also suggest that contemporary spiritual and philosophical concerns of human nature and potential still find resonance in the lessons of early Christianity. Beyond religious studies, these revelations have enormous relevance since they shed light on human consciousness and growth in line with current scientific perspectives. The books outline ideas and methods aligned with present research in neurology, psychology, and human potential. This implies that, in terms of comprehending human nature and consciousness, ancient knowledge and contemporary science could have some shared ground. Through these old manuscripts, Musk discovers specifics about transforming events and spiritual technologies known to early Christian organizations, but finally forgotten or concealed. These results show that early Christianity possessed innovative methods for raising human potential and extending human consciousness. These approaches could be pertinent to contemporary initiatives aiming to enhance human capacities and understanding. The writings include detailed narratives of early Christian societies that experienced altered states of consciousness, mystical experiences, and heightened awareness. These stories demonstrate the methodical methods that individuals in the past employed to foster personal growth, a concept that modern science is only beginning to grasp. This gives us a better understanding of our mental and spiritual potential. Theoretical models abound in the literature that help clarify human awareness, spiritual development, and the link between personal consciousness and universal consciousness. Some of these antiquated psychological and spiritual theories are quite comparable to our current understanding of consciousness. This implies that there have been long-standing trends in psychological and spiritual growth among people. Early Christians had a complicated view of human ability for development and metamorphosis, as Musk's research on these materials reveals approaches for acquiring human talents, considering the physical, psychological, and spiritual components of experience. These age-old methods offer valuable insights for modern endeavors to raise human potential and consciousness. The path of the Bible through time started with several issues affecting its formation. While some ancient scrolls containing Holy Scriptures vanished over time, Roman emperors seeking to stifle early Christian ideas purposefully destroyed others. These losses caused major gaps in biblical records and understanding, which compelled scholars to reconstruct bits of old knowledge. Early Christian communities saved several collections of writings in different locations, hence producing a range of interpretations and theological stances. This fluctuation sometimes caused conflicts among Christians, as they debated whether scriptures indeed expressed divine inspiration and apostolic doctrines. Communities maintained their own libraries of religious texts from Jerusalem to Alexandria, each of which added to the rich tapestry of early Christian literature. The early church fathers had to carefully consider how they established holy liturgy. They assessed a number of pieces that were floating across Christian communities. Whether a book was authored by an apostle, in line with accepted beliefs, and extensively used in reputable churches, defined its legitimacy. Analyzing several textual variants and investigating historical links to apostolic sources constituted part of this meticulous approach. Preserving Holy Scriptures was increasingly challenging as Christianity expanded to many languages and cultures. Translations help to guarantee that the material is theologically accurate, while nevertheless being understandable to many different groups. Scribes diligently replicate books, developing sophisticated techniques to ensure faithful transmission of the knowledge. Political pressure and persecution caused more problems for the compilation process. Maintaining their authenticity, Christian communities often had to guard their holy books from destruction. While some books were kept hidden far away, others were passed down orally until they could be penned safely. The early church councils greatly aided the process of assessing and confirming holy books. They set standards for figuring out which works are canonical by looking at things like apostolic authority, theological consistency, and whether or not all established churches accept them. These debates would periodically last for decades as church officials worked toward consensus. The development of biblical writings also reflected the diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds. Every Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic text offered a different perspective and reading. While still preserving their unique contributions to knowledge of the Bible, researchers sought to bring these several traditions into line. The church's leaders conducted extensive research and thought before deciding which writings to include in the New Testament canon. For the Christian faith and practice, the church admitted this body of work as divinely inspired and authoritative. The approach proved to be both intellectually rigorous and spiritually sensible. Advanced archival methods were essential to preserve biblical manuscripts. Monastic societies created particular methods for organizing and storing manuscripts. To ensure they would survive political upheavals and natural disasters, they produced several copies of the volumes. Constant improvement of our knowledge of the evolution of the Bible comes from fresh archaeological discoveries. Discovering ancient documents from sites like Qumran and Nag Hammadi helps one to better appreciate early Christian and Jewish cultures. These revelations help scholars to put the historical context of biblical writings together. Also, part of the process of distributing biblical books was careful evaluation of several interpretations and textual traditions. Researchers developed procedures for evaluating various versions of papers, recording their variations, and assessing their relevance. For modern biblical scholarship, this field of research keeps offering insight. The historical development of the Bible reflects the complex interactions among several Christian communities. Though they sometimes had somewhat different collections of manuscripts, the Eastern and Western churches shared the same fundamental sacred books. These variations enriched the richness of the biblical legacy. Translation and interpretation became much more important as Christianity spread into other regions. Church officials had to make sure the books were theologically accurate, as well as easily available to persons from many backgrounds. This process produced important Bible translations in languages such as Latin, Syriac, and Coptic. One cannot overlook the need for oral tradition to preserve biblical values. Many early Christian groups set policies allowing them to memorize and pass on religious ideas using spoken word. These customs often enhanced textual materials and helped to ensure their proper reading. The expansion of writing materials and technologies also impacted the preservation of the Bible. The change from scrolls to codices, then to printed books, created fresh challenges and chances for text distribution. Scribes had to modify their methods while yet maintaining accuracy. Modern academic approaches still expose a fresh understanding of the development of the Bible. Advanced imaging methods allow one to check fading or damaged manuscripts. Linguistic analysis helps us to follow the development of textual traditions across many regions and eras. An amazing achievement in the annals of religion is the building of the biblical canon. It illustrates how several tribes worked together to preserve and transmit beloved customs. This method blends spiritual intuition with intellectual accuracy. According to the continuous research on biblical growth, religious history is rich and multifarious. It demonstrates how heavenly providence and human endeavor cooperatively safeguard significant spiritual lessons for next generations. Religious beliefs and practices of today still bear traces of this past. In the annals of religion, the day Emperor Constantine turned Christian was momentous. He went from persecuting to defending the Christian faith after having a vision on the battlefield and winning. Across the Roman Empire, this metamorphosis fundamentally changed the relationship between the church and the government. Under Constantine's rule, Christianity gained official support and legal protection never seen before. By writing edicts of religious tolerance, he stopped centuries of persecution and let Christians freely follow their faith. Thanks to this unprecedented freedom, religious scholars could now defend and study holy literature without concern about persecution. Constantine provided the building blocks required for churches and other religious establishments spread around the kingdom. For the preservation of biblical documents and the evolution of methodical methods for religious research, these establishments grew indispensable. Now working freely, scribes created several copies of holy writings to guarantee their preservation. The emperor's involvement included funding the production of excellent biblical manuscripts. Expert scribes wrote 50 copies of the scriptures using the best resources. The royal assistants ensured the accurate distribution of biblical texts throughout the empire and aided in their standardization. In 325 CE, Constantine gathered the Nicaea Council. It was a gathering of Christian leaders from all over. Dealing with significant doctrinal differences, this historic conference sought to produce a common Christian doctrine. The decisions the council made affected the choice of canonical scriptures and helped define the fundamental principles of Christianity. The effort to construct the New Testament canon gained momentum during this period. Examining many different works closely, religious scholars considered topics such as whether they matched theology, whether they were approved by various churches, and whether they were penned by apostles. Intellectual agreement and spiritual insight combined to guide the 27-book selection. Constantine evolved sophisticated methods for copying and conserving texts throughout his rule. Religious centers established dedicated scriptoria, housing experienced scribes who strived to create exact copies of Holy Scriptures. These institutions install rigorous quality control systems to guarantee that the text stays whole. Standardizing biblical texts was made simpler by the official scriptoria's establishment all across the empire. Scribes set consistent formatting and annotation techniques to guarantee the correct distribution of religious materials. This standardization reduced the variances in the text and preserved the integrity of religious components. The help of the emperor enabled the development of improved methods of archiving data. Religious centers nowadays can make investments in better preservation techniques and storage spaces. This institutional backing helped to guard holy writings against environmental damage and degradation. Constantine's programs encouraged cooperation among several Christian groups by means of knowledge sharing. Now free to tour the empire, religious leaders can discuss texts and contrast textual traditions wherever. This interaction of ideas enhanced biblical studies and helped to create consensus on canonical material. The imperial sponsorship of Christianity affected the development of biblical manuscripts creatively. Expert painters made elaborate decorations and images to accentuate the beauty of holy books and facilitate understanding of them. Part of the legacy of holy texts was their creative quality. Under Constantine's rule, the translations of biblical texts into several languages accelerated. This project made access to holy writings attainable for people from many backgrounds all across the empire. Scholars tried to maintain theological accuracy while altering books to suit various cultural settings. The arrangement of religious education flourished during this period. Now free to run, Christian schools equipped next generations of academics and scribes. This educational system guaranteed the dissemination and preservation of holy writings. Thanks to Constantine, Christianity evolved more sophisticated approaches to literary analysis. Scholars could review several publishing customs and evaluate the variations in the readings. By strengthening its basis, this intellectual rigor made biblical studies more robust. The conversion of the emperor affected the preservation of historical evidence in early Christianity. Christian historians can now freely record the events and ideas of their own culture. These historical accounts provide significant details on how Christian thinking and biblical writings have evolved throughout time. The rule of Constantine marked the beginning of a fresh era in the annals of religious architecture. Building big churches gave the storage and study of Holy Scriptures safe locations. These architectural inventions were evidence of Christian institutional authority growing. The formal channels for religious communication helped to coordinate scholarly activities, thereby improving their quality. These days, Christian leaders can cooperate more successfully to authenticate and protect holy books. People could more easily distribute information and resources around the empire because of this network. Constantine's support of these many projects made it so that Christian literature would endure and grow. His laws created conditions that enabled the physical preservation of books and the intellectual growth of biblical study. By challenging church practices and supporting individuals' direct access to the Bible, Martin Luther rose to be a significant figure in the annals of religion. His creative posture marked a significant departure from the centralized religious authority that had dominated Christian practice for centuries by stressing personal interpretation and knowledge of Scripture. Luther undertook the massive task of translating the Bible into German so that common people may read holy texts for the first time. It took a tremendous deal of research and linguistic knowledge to guarantee the translation effort was both theologically accurate and understandable in the common language. The approach called for a thorough investigation of the cultural context and language nuances. His translating endeavor established new standards for access to and interpretation of the Bible. Luther developed fresh approaches to clearly communicate difficult theological concepts in simple language, which affected later translations of the Bible into many languages and cultures. His methods showed remarkable capacity to blend general knowledge with academic rigor. Luther's concentration on 66 canonical works showed his commitment to the integrity of the Scriptures. He spent time reading religious books, separating those he felt were inspired by God from other kinds of religious literature. This process helped him to develop clear standards for biblical authenticity and distinguish the apocryphal writings from the main biblical canon. Luther's writings motivated a more extensive movement to translate the Bible into the local languages. His example inspired academics all throughout Europe to engage in like-minded activities, therefore enabling the Bible to be more widely available. Regular believers' interactions with holy texts evolved under this movement. Luther's view of scriptural authority informed the difference between canonical and apocryphal books. He underlined that the 66-book canon is complete and flawless, since he thought these books include all the spiritual truths required for Christian faith and behavior. This kind of view challenged the conventional wisdom on the importance of church legacy in the Bible interpretation. Luther undertook a careful textual study to develop methodical approaches for reading the Bible. His methods affected how Protestants approach the study and understanding of Scripture by combining academic rigor with pragmatic application. These guidelines of interpretation underlined the need for the Bible to be unambiguous and sufficient for leading a Christian life. Luther's writings featured biblical instruction and had effects beyond mere translation. Since he felt that direct interaction with Scriptures was essential for spiritual growth, he supported broad literacy and biblical education. This focus on education changed how Protestant areas delivered their religious instruction. Luther's reliance on the authority of the Bible threw into doubt the traditional church hierarchy. His writings encouraged individuals to study and understand Scriptures on their own, therefore generating fresh approaches to understanding and applying religion. The democratizing of biblical interpretation has a major influence on religion and society. The division of apocryphal works demonstrated Luther's concerns about the validity of the Scriptures. Based on theological consistency and historical evidence, he graded works. He developed criteria for judging canonical authority. This method demanded close study of historical locations and transmission histories. Technical problems of Bible translation received careful consideration during this period. Luther and his associates devised fresh approaches to handle challenging theological and linguistic concepts across language divides. They created rules for guaranteeing that their translations are theologically accurate. The Protestant emphasis on Scripture alone changed people's perceptions of religious authority. Luther's writings produced fresh approaches to view the relationship between church tradition and biblical writings. This development greatly altered the character of Western Christianity. To finish his translating job, he had to pay considerable attention to textual variants and manuscript customs. Luther checked several different sources to make sure the books were straightforward and factual for the typical reader. Together with pastoral care, this scholarly method served to define Protestant biblical studies. Luther's art gained more impact as printing technology developed. Mass production of translated Bibles opens Holy Scriptures to more readers than ever before. This technical development made it simpler for newly developed ideas to spread rapidly all throughout Europe. The emphasis on reading the Bible personally altered people's religious practices. Driven by the study of the Scriptures, Luther's writings encouraged creative methods of personal dedication and group worship. This change affected the public as well as personal devotion. Martin Luther's approach to interpreting the Bible reflected his more general theological ideas, emphasizing clarity and accessibility while yet maintaining scholarly rigor. He set standards that have impacted generations of translators and interpreters. Access to common Bibles transformed instruction in religious education. Focusing on direct interaction with biblical books instead of depending on conventional interpretations, communities developed fresh approaches to teaching scriptures. Luther's influence extended to ideas of textual criticism and manuscript evaluation. His efforts established instruments for comparing many textual traditions and assessing different interpretations. Therefore, they helped to build modern biblical studies. The translation project required the German language to produce fresh theological vocabulary. Luther's creative solutions for translating difficulties affected the development of the religious language in several European languages. His writings helped Protestant traditions to create fresh approaches to reading the Bible. While still stressing practical application, these interpretative approaches gave historical background, language studies, and theological consistency a substantial weight. The availability of biblical resources in local languages has shifted the distribution of religious authority. Direct interaction with Scripture became possible for communities, leading to new kinds of religious organization and practice that are still influencing Christian communities today. Modern translations and Bible interpretations still draw on Luther's writings. Today's efforts to make biblical books accessible to a broad spectrum of readers worldwide still depend on his insistence on clarity, truth, and accessibility. In the realm of biblical archaeology, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Qumran caves during the 1940s was unprecedented. Hidden for almost 2,000 years, the discovery exposed these ancient manuscripts as the oldest known Bible texts. They offer fresh and original analysis of early Christian books and Jewish writings. Bedouin shepherds initially discovered these priceless records in clay jars in remote caverns in the desert. This inadvertent discovery led to protracted archaeological digs that finally turned up hundreds of manuscript fragments. These fragments comprise around 900 distinct works, penned between 300 BCE and 70 CE. Some of the writings in the Old Testament had many versions. The scrolls included remarkable copies of practically every book in the corpus. Many manuscripts were kept in perfect preservation due to the dry desert environment, which let academics examine biblical literature far older than any copy that had been found thus far. Examining closely revealed that these old texts and contemporary Bible translations are fairly similar. This concordance provided solid evidence that careful copying and preservation had faithfully passed down Bible writings over the years. Until recently, the scrolls also contained a significant amount of non-canonical religious literature, which included previously unidentified Jewish writings. These additional works have sparked fresh scholarly debate on the historical process of determining which books ought to be judged divinely inspired. The discovery put into doubt some of the accepted wisdom regarding the evolution of biblical writings. The variations in scroll copies revealed that ancient Jewish communities concurrently used several kinds of text, implying a more complex transfer of the text than formerly believed. Interesting differences in some biblical texts led researchers to greater knowledge of how ancient scribes handled text variances. These revelations sparked debates on textual criticism and the production of consistent biblical books. Many of the books in the scrolls had typically been omitted from the biblical canon, which has spurred fresh debates on their historical significance. These books shed fresh light on the religious ideas and customs of ancient Jews in the Second Temple period that they followed. Nowadays, modern technology lets one examine the scrolls more precisely. While molecular studies offer details on the physical structure and preservation of the scrolls, advanced imaging technologies allow one to decipher portions of them that were, until now, illegible. The find also revealed details about the society that preserved these writings. Archaeological evidence points to a cadre of scribes committed to preserving exact copying techniques as the reason behind the remarkable preservation of biblical texts. Cooperation among academics from many nations has advanced our knowledge of the scrolls. Scholars from several fields offer perspectives on ancient languages, historical events, and religious practices depicted in these texts. Efforts at digital preservation have made scroll contents available to scholars all around the globe. This technological breakthrough facilitates ongoing study and discussion of the significance of these ancient works for understanding biblical history. Important details about the sectarian movements of ancient Jews abound in the scrolls. The scrolls showcase various interpretations of religious rites and biblical writings during a pivotal era in the histories of Judaism and Christianity. Continuous study of scroll fragments offers further details on the writing techniques of ancient scribes. Scholars look at how old Jewish scribes arranged their writing, edited their work, and penned. The find has ramifications for historical research and archaeology outside of biblical studies. The physical data from Qumran clarifies how ancient religious organizations preserved and distributed their priceless literature. Comparative studies of various ancient manuscripts and scroll books help us better grasp text distribution. Scholars look at the links among several literary traditions and their historical development. According to the scrolls, ancient Judaism had complex relationships between canonical and non-canonical literature. The scrolls show the spread of several religious books and their impact on ancient Jewish ideas and behavior. Scholars nowadays are still debating the significance of the scrolls for comprehending the formation of the biblical canon. These problems fit more general debates about the authority of religion and the validity of religious writings. Still heavily discussed in debates on biblical archaeology and textual criticism are the Dead Sea Scrolls. Finding the Dead Sea Scrolls changed our knowledge of ancient Jewish literature and the background of biblical writings. Constant study uncovers new insights into the preservation and composition of scrolls. A scientific study clarifies the methods of manufacturing and preserving old manuscripts. The scrolls keep raising fresh concerns about the religious ideas and practices of past societies. They provide crucial data to help one understand the historical backdrop of biblical literature and its development across time. The official biblical canon excludes several sacred writings throughout the evolution of ancient religions. Among other books, the Gospel of Thomas and the Book of Tobit included theological points of view and doctrinal elements quite different from the doctrines accepted generally in the Scriptures. The rejected works presented various perspectives on divine, spiritual, and religious authority. For example, the sayings credited to Jesus found in the Gospel of Thomas deviated from the narratives found in the canonical Gospels. These proverbs presented original ways to apply his lessons. Archaeological evidence known as the Dead Sea Scrolls revealed that ancient Jewish cultures preserved and studied both the now considered invalid books and the ones included in the Bible. This finding revealed that the religious communities of the time considered these works to be quite spiritually significant. Protestant Bibles exclude the Book of Tobit, a model of advanced moral education and religious narrative. Ancient Jewish sources include it, highlighting its significance in prior spiritual direction and religious instruction. Examining the rejected manuscripts exposes intricate theological debates in early religious cultures. These books often explore mystical experiences, several readings of divine revelation, and various approaches to spiritual practice. According to historical records, religious groups routinely distributed these books in antiquity. The preservation and dissemination of these books alongside classic works underscored their importance in the spiritual lives of early Jews and Christians. Strong proof that ancient Jewish communities valued these books highly comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Several rejected texts in the scrolls implied their regular usage in religious study and practice. Scholarly study reveals advanced theological ideas present in the rejected manuscripts. These works connected strongly with spiritual issues and religious experience, even though they deviated from the final orthodox viewpoints. Canonical selection involved a process with complex criteria, transcending mere popularity. Religious authorities evaluated texts based on apostolic authority, theological consistency, and degree of fit with recognized beliefs. Contemporary academic study keeps revealing fresh understanding of rejected works. Discoveries in archaeology provide us with new knowledge that clarifies the purpose of these groupings in old faiths. Modern studies show that between canonical and non-canonical books, there are more intricate interactions. According to evidence, ancient societies often applied both kinds of writing for different uses in their religious activities. The discovery of old manuscripts begs doubts regarding basic explanations for the rejection of books. According to historical records, canonical development processes are more complex than hitherto believed. Examining rejected papers closely can provide us with crucial insights on the religious views of past civilizations. These volumes show different theological concepts and spiritual customs in early religious communities. There remain unresolved issues about the authority of these works in contemporary religious studies. Their historical importance continues to generate debate about religious authority and the development of the Bible. Often incorporated in rejected works were ethical lessons and great spiritual understanding. Though they were taken out of the official canon, they helped advance more religious knowledge and practice. Archaeological discoveries point to the meticulous preservation of abandoned books from past societies. Despite their ultimate canonical rejection, this data demonstrates their great importance in religious life. Understanding ancient religious variation still depends on this literature. They reflect the range of spiritual concepts common in early Jewish and Christian societies. Contemporary academics keep looking at links between approved and rejected works. This study clarifies the genesis and preservation of holy books among different religious communities. The basic topic of what comprised the original Bible has been hotly debated academically and religiously over history. This protracted debate covers academic institutions, religious groups, and generations of scholars committed to uncovering biblical roots. New evidence on early biblical literature keeps coming from archaeological finds. Every discovery raises issues about original content, translational correctness, and textual transmission across eras, adding further layers of complexity. According to historical research, several ancient civilizations have gathered holy writings in different ways. Various locations maintained different combinations of books, suggesting the simultaneous preservation of several early copies of Bible collections. Finding ancient texts usually begs questions about textual authenticity. To grasp early biblical development, scholars compare differences in content, structure, and theological focus among many manuscript traditions. Elon Musk's passion for this historical topic reflects more general current curiosity about biblical beginnings. His study of old religious writings reveals that questions about the fullness and veracity of the Bible still have meaning today. Textual research reveals that development in biblical manuscripts is complex. As seen by the variations between early versions, active compilation and editing affected the biblical texts across history. Modern academics analyze ancient texts using sophisticated technology tools. Finding minute differences between copies of manuscripts via digital analysis helps us to learn fresh facts about the evolution of the Bible over time. Examining the relationship between oral tradition and written literature throws off debates. Scholars differ about how the oldest known manuscripts of biblical narratives were altered by the oral transmission of these stories. Biblical study still suffers from questions regarding missing texts. References to lost works in the present biblical books imply notable gaps in the kept religious literature. Archaeological findings occasionally contradict popular wisdom about the evolution of the Bible. Fresh discoveries can reveal unexpected connections between several religious groups and different literary traditions. In the discipline of biblical studies, the mechanism of canonical formation remains a main focus of research. Scholars look at social, theological, and historical elements, influencing choices about Bible content. Contemporary research tools provide new perspectives on past editorial processes. Examining manuscript features helps us understand how early religious cultures produced and kept their holy books. The way various languages affect the spread of the Bible raises further issues. Scholars examine the creation of texts in the context of translating between Hebrew, Greek, and other ancient languages. Historical background greatly shapes our perspective of the Bible's beginnings. Political, cultural, and religious aspects shaped communities' methods of keeping and distributing holy writings. We ought to give scribal customs much thought as they help preserve books. Ancient copying techniques affected the spread of Bible writings over several regions. Talks over authorship of anything are still ongoing. While considering the difficult processes involved in writing and editing material, researchers examine evidence for conventional attributions. The links among several religious systems shape our knowledge. Scholars investigate how various religious organizations have impacted the preservation and interpretation of holy writings. In biblical study, methods cover several domains. Archaeological, linguistic, and historical approaches offer still more understanding of the evolution of books across time. Evidence points to the long periods of development and improvement that the book experienced. Scholars look at how over millennia, religious cultures have progressively shaped and standardized the contents of the Bible. It is imperative to take into account how historical political events shaped Bible preservation. The manner in which societies kept their holy books changed with wars, migration, and cultural changes. Modern debates in biblical studies often center on methodology. Scholars argue over the best approach to evaluating data and finding the source of a document. Reflecting on everything we've just discussed, I find myself contemplating the pursuit of truth. Not just Elon Musk's path, but also our individual journeys. Not only are the issues of the original Bible, the significance of the excluded books, and the manner in which holy values have been handed down through centuries topics of historical relevance. They are proof of the human yearning for interpersonal connection, as well as with the Creator. From my research, the most crucial lesson I have acquired is the need for humility when facing unknown events. Whatever our opinions, the process of inquiry and education helps us to develop a closer awareness of the planet and our own principles. According to the Bible, the truth is sometimes hidden in obscure bits of knowledge, and finding it calls for both will and an open-mindedness. This story should inspire us to continue on our own road of discovery and knowledge. Should this movie inspire you, don't let that emotion go. Never stop exploring for fresh ideas. Share what you find with the people around you. We should be carriers of values that could help the world, not only consumers of knowledge. If you find this video relevant, please share it with others so they can also hear this story. Sign up for the channel to prevent missing fresh material. You are going to be a part of the long journey ahead.
Do you love meaningful Bible stories? Top 7 Bible Stories channel will bring you inspiration and peace every day. Don't forget to like and share your thoughts in the comments section. Your sharing is the motivation for us to bring more stories. Top 7 Bible Stories. Good stories, beautiful meanings.